Welcome to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're right on the door edge of the All-Star game for 2017, everyone. And hello, everyone. As we were saying, it's almost All-Star break time, the 88th edition of the MLB All-Star game. We have the winners announced, who will be on the field in just a couple of days on July 11th down there in Miami, and I'm all pumped up about it. How about you, Gary?
Oh, yeah, Rich. It's that time of year. We're at the halfway point, the unofficial halfway point. Over it slightly, but yeah, that's it's time now, and we're getting into the dog days of summer, Rich. So it's gonna be a lot of tight races coming up.
Yes, indeed. And the big news today, and I was very surprised. I was extra busy at work, but I glanced down at my phone and I saw a heart procedure for Tony Francona, sidelining him for the All-Star game. But they picked someone on his squad to pitch in for him. But yeah, sort of an emergency heart procedure on Thursday afternoon, yesterday, and out of the Midsummer Classic. So we've seen a few other players being substituted for, and every year this seems to happen. You know, the players get named, the reserves get named, and then they always need a ton more, it seems.
Yeah, I think they put out 7 guys today. Seven names that are guys that are going to be replacement, and Terry Francona. What a shame, but he'll be back again. I'm sure he'll be managing once again in the All Star game. But uh, yeah, this is he's been feeling ill a little bit. Remember, they took him to the hospital a couple of weeks ago. He kind of felt weak and everything. So they say it's a heart procedure, but they think he'll be back after the All Star break. So it doesn't sound like it's too serious. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's excellent. Glad to hear that. And what a big surprise. You know, you don't expect to hear that just a few days before the game. But as we said, the players have been announced in a grand fashion. I don't know if you caught it was a pretty good show. I caught the whole show on Sunday night. It started around 7 p.m. and it was really entertaining. They went for a full hour with all the players, the pitchers, and then the backups, and it was a great program.
Well, everything's a show now, Rich. They got to have an award show, it seems, for everything. So I guess this is no exception at all.
Not at all. And let's trying to find a website that I can go to read these rosters out without Sam. I can't find any.
Well, I actually I did find one. So I do have the rosters in front of me. If you'd like to know, I did a little bit of research. You even got the home run derby brackets. So if you'd like, I will be more than happy to read them out.
Try that, and as you do that, I'll try to get on a page as well with the listings as well. I think I just found one.
All right. Well, for the American League All-Star roster, for the starters, the catcher is going to be Salvador Perez from the Kansas City Royals. At first base will be Justin Smoke of the Toronto Blue Jays. Second base, of course, is Jose Altuve from the Houston Astros. Jose Ramirez will be at third base. He is of the Cleveland Indians. And at shortstop, Carlos Correa. In the outfield, we have Aaron Judge from the Yankees. Mike Trout was elected a starter, but he's not going to play because he's injured. George Springer of the Astros. Mookie Betts of the Red Sox, and he's in place. Corey Dickerson of the Tampa Bay Rays is the designated hitter. The reserves for the American League: Gary Sanchez of the Yankees, Yonder Alonso of the Athletics, Starlin Castro of the Yankees, Jonathan of the Baltimore Orioles, Francisco Lindor of the Indians, Miguel Sano of the Minnesota Twins, Mookie Betts, who we already mentioned, Michael Brantley of the Cleveland Indians, Avisail Garcia of the Chicago White Sox, and the reserve DH is Nelson Cruz of the Seattle Mariners. Over to the pitchers, relief pitcher Dylan Betances of the Yankees, Yu Darvish of the Rangers, Michael Fulmer of the Detroit Tigers and a former Met, Dallas Keuchel of the Houston Astros, Craig Kimbrell of the Boston Red Sox, Corey Kluber of the Cleveland Indians, Lance McCullers Jr. of the Houston Astros, Andrew Miller of the Indians, Chris Sale of the Red Sox, Irvin Santana of the Minnesota Twins, Luis Severino of the Yankees, and Jason Vargas from the Royals. Now, the final vote candidates were Elvis Andrus of the Rangers, Xander Bogaerts of the Red Sox, Didi Gregorius of the Yankees, Logan Morrison of the Rays, and Mike Moustakas of the Kansas City Royals. And Mike Moustakas is the final vote candidate. He won. He got the most votes for the final vote candidate in the American League.
And also Justin Turner from the LA Dodgers. And I wonder if some of those players don't really benefit by being in a big city like that.
You would think they would. You would think they would be able to pack the ballot box, but I guess it doesn't always work that way.
Well, we got a ton of players headed to this All-Star game. I guess they need them. They need players to come in and out of that game, but only the best showing up in All-Star game tradition, and that's what I really love. These are the guys that are getting it done on the field. They're not the also-rans, so to speak. They're the cream of the crop, and it should be a real great game.
It should be, and the National League looks like a pretty good roster too, Rich, if you want me to read that one.
Yeah, why not?
All right, for the National League, we have at the catching position Buster Posey of the Giants. Ryan Zimmerman is at first base with the Nationals. Daniel Murphy also with the Nationals. He's at second. Nolan Arenado of the Rockies is at third. Zach Cozart of the Cincinnati Reds. That's kind of a shocker there. Don't know much about Zach Cozart, to be honest. Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies is one of the outfielders. Bryce Harper of the Nationals is the other outfielder, and the final outfielder is Marcell Ozuna. That is of the Marlins. That is the starters for the National League. The reserves at catcher, no surprise, Yadier Molina of the Cardinals, Paul Goldschmidt of the D-backs at first, Joey Votto of the Reds at first base as well. Two second basemen, Josh Harrison from the Pirates and DJ LeMahieu from the Rockies. Shortstop, Corey Seager from the Dodgers. Jake Lamb from the D-backs is at the hot corner backup. In the outfield, we have Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers, Michael Conforto of the Mets, and Ender Inciarte of the Braves, and Giancarlo Stanton of the Marlins. Odd that Giancarlo Stanton didn't make the starting position this year, but that's the way it goes some years. And with the pitchers, we have Wade Davis of the Cubs, Zach Greinke of the D-backs, Brad Hand from the Padres, Greg Holland from the Rockies, Kenley Jansen from the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw from the Dodgers, though I think he is pitching Sunday, so he probably will not be available. Corey Knebel from the Brewers, Carlos Martinez from the Cardinals, Pat Neshek from the Philadelphia Phillies, Robbie Ray from the D-backs, Max Scherzer from the Nationals, and Steven Strasburg from the Nationals. And as you said, Arno was the final vote candidate, so he'll be joining the squad. And Major League Baseball today released a list of 7 substitutions for the rosters already, and they are Chris Archer from the Tampa Bay Rays, Robinson Cano from the Mariners, Chris Devinsky from the Astros, Brandon Kinsler from the Twins, Roberto Osuna from the Blue Jays, Justin Upton from the Tigers, and Alex Wood from the Dodgers. So that is your rosters.
That's a well-rounded lineup of great players there. And I voted on the final vote. I voted for Bryant and Bogarts from the Red Sox, and they both finished second in the final vote. But this is the first time since Jimmy Rollins made MVP, I think back in 2007, that a player has not returned to the All-Star game the following year, just like Bryant was the MVP last year. He has not been voted into this year's All-Star game, so he'll be a spectator just like us, Gary.
Very strange about that. You would think that he would have been Chris Bryant, very popular Rookie of the Year and an MVP in his first 2 seasons, and as you say, it's very strange that he didn't make it this year, but the Cubbies are struggling, and I guess the fans weren't voting.
That's true. Well, like you said, we're probably over halfway done with the season, and that was a quick first half. I'll run down a little bit of the standings here in the American League. The Boston Red Sox, 3.5 game lead over the New York Yankees. In the Central, it's the Cleveland Indians, and they've been playing quite well lately. They have a 1-game lead over the Kansas City Royals. Those Royals seem like they're stalking over there in the Central, though.
And they came out of nowhere, Rich.
Yeah, they did. They've really pulled something together there. 7-3 in their last 10, 4 games in a row as of the time we're doing this podcast, winners of 4 games. And the Twins are hanging in there, too. They're still a game and a half back. So, I mean, between the American League East and the American League Central, you have a great race there until you go out west and you find the Houston Astros with that 15.5 game lead over the L.A. Angels, formerly of Anaheim, probably still somewhere around Anaheim, but they're 44 and 45, 15.5 games back are the Angels, still waiting for Mike Trout to rejoin the team. He's currently in the minors. I think he's had a couple games under his belt, and probably we'll see him right after the All-Star break sometime return to the Angels. Not sure if that's going to really help them in some sort of playoff race. Do you want to take the National League, Gary?
Sure. Well, we'll open up with the Eastern Division, and Washington has got an 8.5 lead over the Atlanta Braves of all people, and a 9.5 over my New York Mets, who look pretty dead in the water right now. Milwaukee hanging in there as well in the Central, Rich. They've opened up a 4-game lead over the Cubbies. In fact, they beat them yesterday, I believe, and really beat them good, 11-2, I believe the final was. And the Dodgers have taken a 5.5 game lead as Arizona and Colorado begin to sink in the standings. Though Arizona is still playing pretty decently, but it looks like the Dodgers are the class in that, and they have the best record in the National League, and tied, it looks like, for the best record in the most wins in all of baseball with the Houston Astros. So Dodgers coming out of nowhere and really getting the job done.
Yes, they are. In last week's power rankings from ESPN, the LA Dodgers were number 1, followed by the Houston Astros, and then the Washington Nationals, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Last week they were number 3. So they slipped a spot there, and they've been doing quite well this year as well. The Boston Red Sox are at number 5, and then the New York Yankees, they seem to do good at times, and they've been slipping a bit lately. They're number 6, followed by the Cleveland Indians, according to ESPN's power rankings just released a few days ago. And I'm really looking forward to this year's All-Star game, Gary.
Yeah, it should be a good one, Rich. And you know, you were talking about the Yankees a little bit, and they really have slipped. 16 out of their last 22 they've lost. So it's been a rough road for them, but um, it's still they still have time. They're still in the race. They're only a couple of games out of first, and there's a couple of races that looks pretty good. The Central could potentially have a race in the National League and the American League, and the Eastern the American League looks like a race. So we'll see how it all plays out. And don't forget, Rich, we're a mere 2 weeks away from the trading deadline, or 3 weeks away, something like that. 24 days.
Yeah, and a lot of the teams that are on the edge, so to speak, they're still in the hunt. They're probably going to be looking for some of those players that some teams will part with. Interesting to see what will happen with the Mets, of course, a team that you follow very closely, Gary, and of course the Phillies. Every night I'm hearing, oh, this player could leave, this player could leave, and it's usually the player that's doing the most for the team. So it'd be hard to believe if some of those players do leave. But it's always a bittersweet time, especially if your team isn't really doing too well on the season.
It certainly is, Rich, and we've both been going through that this season. So, but we'll see what happens with this trading deadline, and the rumors should start heating up now in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, they will. And Brad Mills has been named as the American League manager, pitching in for his manager, Terry Francona. He's the bench coach for the Indians, so he'll be the manager on duty at the All-Star game. Of course, Joe Madden going for the National League. And so far, they haven't announced the starting pitchers for that game. I'm looking at an article here as we're doing the show, and who should get the ball for the start in each league. And you could probably make a good argument for both leagues. Anyone could really handle this job. Chris Sale for the Red Sox has had a great season for them. Jason Vargas as well. He's 12-3 with a 2.62 ERA. And over in the National League, Max Scherzer with 10-5 record with a 1.94 ERA. And you could even look at Zach Greinke there, or a number of other pitchers on the National League. So it'll be interesting to hear who will be starting that game.
Yeah, and don't forget Alex Wood, who's on now, essentially replacing Kershaw. So yeah, he could be a potential starter as well. So I think he's 10-2 on the year or something. So yeah, we should be finding out. I guess they want to see what happens on Sunday, who's still going to be able to pitch, and how that all works out after the season. The games come to an end either Saturday or Sunday.
Yep, and of course, the MLB All-Star game used to determine home field advantage in the World Series, but starting this year, that will no longer be. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any changes that happens because of that. I kind of like that rule myself. It gave these teams a little better incentive, especially some of the guys that are in the hunt for what you would consider to be the playoffs. They want to try their best and get that home field advantage. How do you feel about that, Gary?
I got to be honest, Rich. I never liked it really, and I think I kind of think the best alternative will be, or should be, to go back to the rotating years. I think that was a little bit more, and you could plan a little bit more. So look, they've ruined the All Star game. I believe when they went to interleague play, that killed the whole All Star game. When we were kids, we used to look forward to the All Star game because we've seen guys that we never saw from the other leagues. We didn't see that much of the American League. If you were a Met fan, if you were a Yankee fan, you didn't see much of the National League. and they kind of ruin it now with the interleague play. It doesn't, so it's taken the shine off of the All-Star game. I don't know. Maybe there's something else that they can do. Um, they may have to change the format of the game itself. I don't know. What that would be? No idea. Maybe they should have the world champion team play against an all-star team. But then the guys on the world championship team never can become all-stars. So I don't know. It's a tough one to call.
Yes, it is. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And I'm reading an article here. I didn't hear too much about this until now, but it says possibly the All-Star game winners, the players on that team that wins the All-Star game, will have an incentive to play for a pool of money this year. So I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Of course, that'll motivate some of these players as well.
Money is always a good motivator.
Well, let's take a small break here in the podcast, and we'll be back in a second and talk some more baseball with the 88th edition of MLB's All-Star Game just around the corner. We'll be back after this message. We'd love to hear your comments. Please send your emails to talk@mlbthisweek.com. You can reach Gary at baseballtalkradio.com, or me, Rich at baseballtalkradio.com. We'd love to hear your comments, so send them in. Subscribe to the Baseball Talk Radio show on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, or Podomatic.com. This way you'll never miss an episode. Gary, I think I'm going to go over to baseballtalkradio.com and listen to all the baseball talk shows there. Do you think I can cram it all in on a weekend?
No, I don't think so. It's going to take you quite some time, but there's a little bit of everything there. Cover most of the teams, and Japanese baseball, fantasy baseball, all there at baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows. And go check it out. It's a great place. And if you'd like to help us out a little bit, you can go to patreon.com, become a sponsor of the show. Help us out. $2 a month, $1 a month, anything you can give it all would be gratefully appreciated, and help us do more of this kind of thing, the video, and expand our capabilities, and maybe some on the road surprises in the summertime. So that's patreon.com/baseball talk. Give whatever you can. We'd greatly appreciate it. And this is the time of the year the spirit of giving is strong with everyone. So please go and help us out.
You're listening to BaseballPodcasts.net.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get a PhD in life through baseball? Welcome to Baseball PhD, a tour company for your brain. 30 major league teams, 100 places to see. Let's touch them all as we make the road trip of a lifetime.
Baseball Talk Radio show. We're talking all about the MLB All-Star Game, the 88th edition, Midsummer Classic, as they call it. And thinking back to some of the old All-Star games, Gary, anything that stands out in your mind specifically about some of them?
Well, I can remember the 64. That's 1964. All-Star game at Shea Stadium that was won by Johnny Callison, and the last at bat. That was pretty exciting for a young kid to see, and the first time the All-Star game came to your home field, that was exciting. lot of Doc Gooden striking out Tariq Desai. I forget what year that was, 85 or something, 86. Of course, 2 years ago, I think it was Jason DeGrom coming in and striking out the side and tying the record, I believe it was, for the least amount of pitchers in an inning. So, yeah, it's mostly would probably be Mets memories, and they're few and far between. But Tom Seaver dominating in one of the All-Star games. So, yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was sitting in a restaurant tonight, and they actually had the MLB Network playing up in the corner, and I caught a glimpse of a couple All-Star game memories that they had playing tonight. They had a nice program on that, and as I was eating, I was catching a glimpse. Oh, yeah, I remember old Oakland A's players, Reggie Jackson, and players like that, and it's just years like that you just wish would come back, these players of old. And I specifically took note of things like you were saying, like a lot of these players are built like bodybuilders and football players now. And just probably 15 to 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. Some of these pitchers were pretty thin. They weren't trying to overpower these hitters. They were dropping in a lot of off-speed stuff on them, and it was definitely a different game about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, most definitely. And Pete Rose, how did I forget that? Pete Rose crashing into Ray Fosse. That was exciting. Yeah, it's but you see, those games seem to have more excitement to them because we didn't know the American League that much, being from a National League city. So we didn't follow it really that much. So it was really something else to see. And by the way, Rich, if I may interrupt just a second, this just coming across the news wires, Bartolo Colon has signed the contract with the Minnesota Twins. That's a shocker. Everybody thought the Mets might try to sign him. They talked to his agent, but he's signed with the Minnesota Twins. I'm trying to get a confirmation on that.
Yeah, and I did read that as well. Looked like, from what I read, that it was a minor league contract to start. I guess they want to get him up to speed, and maybe the Twins are going to make a little run at things this year since they're in the thick of things still. And that's another thing. Some of these players and teams that at the beginning of the year you didn't expect them to be there, now all of a sudden here at the All-Star break, they have to take their best shot, so to speak, because they may not get another one. Some of these teams like the Twins, they weren't exactly picked by everybody for sure. And I'm looking at my 2017 Sporting News here, and just to go back in time as we did our show for our MLB Pick Show, the Sporting News picked the Cubs over the Red Sox in the World Series this year. So, they still have a good shot with the Red Sox. I don't know about the Cubs so far, unless they turn it around in the second half.
Well, they're at 500, so they're close, and I guess the Twinkies are close too, and so maybe they're figuring they're going to go for it, and we'll see. Interesting, though. I thought for sure he might come back to the Mets, but I guess he feels at this point they're closer there.
Yeah, and maybe they offered a little bit more cash. As we said, money talks sometimes. But that's what I heard anyway. They were a little far apart with money possibly. So I'm sure he would have loved to return to New York.
Well, he's still getting his $12.5 million. How much more could you possibly, ask for? You're getting that for the year. So how much more do you want to go to another team? But I think the Mets' position, too, was that they were probably going to try to use him in the bullpen as a long relief pitcher. And he wants to remain as a starter because he's trying to break the record for most wins is a Dominican pitcher. I think it is. I think he's 8 short. So that's really what his goal is. And the only way he's going to do that is starting. So
Very interesting. And of course, he probably wanted to go to a contending team possibly as well. Not that he was doing that great with the Braves. The Brave fans are probably out there saying, good luck to the Twins with this signing.
yeah, I'm sure that's the case, Rich.
Well, we invite you to check out our YouTube page. Just search for the Baseball Talk Radio Show at youtube.com. We're doing more and more live shows there. We do one once a week, usually on Friday nights around 8 o'clock. If you're not doing anything, follow our Twitter feed. It's at MLB This Week. We announce when we do our live shows, just probably an hour or so beforehand usually, and it's usually at around 8 p.m. Eastern. So you can check those out. Follow us over at Podomatic.com. That's where we get a lot of listens from, and we thank you all for tuning in to the podcast from there, and of course iTunes and Stitcher Radio. So plenty of ways to check out the show. I know Gary and I are going to really enjoy this edition of the All-Star break, and got to soak this in, Gary. We're almost halfway through the season here.
Yeah, I know, Rich, and pretty soon we're gonna have come to the end of the season, and then what do we do?
it's going to be a long season off.
And you know, Rich, we gotta, if we're gonna talk about the whole All-Star game, we got to talk about the home run derby as well. We have time to squeeze that in?
Sure.
Well, here are the matchups for the home run derby. In round one, it's Giancarlo Stanton against Gary Sanchez. And then Mike Moustakas against Miguel Sano. Cody Bellinger against Charlie Blackmon. And Aaron Judge against Justin Bour of the Marlins. And it almost looks like they're trying to set this thing up so it ends up being Aaron Judge against Stanton in the finals. And perhaps Aaron Judge against Cody Bellinger in the second round. So that'll be interesting. The two hot young players, and then, of course, last year's champion, Giancarlo Stanton, and always a threat in this home run derby. So that's the home run derby, eight participants, and that always comes about. And, of course, the futures game, couple of names to watch there: Ahmed Rosario, Yoan Mercado from the White Sox organization, A.J. Puke from the Athletics, and Bo Bichette, the son of Dante Bichette. He'll be playing for the American team, and so that's all around, and the celebrity softball game, and that's the one thing I don't have anything on.
Yeah, and it seems like getting back to the home run derby, it seems like they used to have a ton of players participate in that. I remember a first round that seemed like a dozen people were taking place on the field there at bat. And it just seemed to drag that on too long for me in the first round. And then the second round, there was, an hour and a half later, it just got very long.
It's too bad they couldn't do something, though. I think the ideal one would be if they could do something like have each team nominate a guy. I know it'd be 30 guys, but maybe in the course of a season you could whittle it down. Like start the competition in, say, May or June 1st. And have whittle down the competition. Have one guy nominated from each team, and when they play, it could be done before the game, a regular season game I'm talking about, and whittle it down that way. And then until you get to the night before and have it, 8 guys left or something. That might put a little bit more interest in it because everybody's team is involved then, but. we'll see. As you say, it can be very boring, and it gets. It used to seem like it went on forever, and it took like what 3-4 hours or something. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was. It seemed to start at around 8 and not get over till around 11, and that's a lot of downtime in that because you have different things going on where the players are getting some rest, and some of the big hitters have balked from that home run derby. I know Bryce Harper this year said absolutely no way, he will not participate this year. I guess maybe it messes up their timing and things like that. And I remember when Ryan Howard was the big home run hitter of the day, and then he was at first very pleased and couldn't wait to get on the field for the home run derby, and then as his career took off a little bit, he refused as well. So I think it's a double-edged sword with some of these players, especially as they start doing well during the season. They don't want to jinx this.
Well, the sabermetricians have spoken on this, Rich. They have put out a report, and they claim that the analysis of the stats shows that it does not harm the swing at all, that there are other factors involved. One is that after the All-Star break, there are less games to be played, so therefore you're not going to hit as much home runs or whatever as you did in the first half. And they bring up the fatigue factor in there as well. And according to the statistics, it does not screw up your swing. It is a myth. I don't know. Who knows?
And then some of these guys probably feel that they could use 3 days off from this grueling season, use it to try to regroup and regenerate and relax possibly, and take a little break out of the game.
You're right, Rich. I think the one thing that people miss about this whole thing, and a lot of reasons why guys don't make it too, is it is the grind. It's a mental and a physical grind, and you need those breaks. I do a podcast covering the minor leagues, and they have like 4 days off. They play 78 games and have this like 4 days off in the whole season, 3 months. So they're playing June, July, August, September. Well, beginning of September, but the big thing with that is the grind. Who can make it through the grind? Even I interviewed an announcer, and even he said that's the big thing he's got to get used to is the grinding aspect, being at the park every day, getting ready to either call the game or to play in the game. And it's the same in the majors. They do get more day offs, but it is that grind, and sometimes that's why the stronger mental player will make it where a guy with maybe more talent but mentally isn't as tough, he's not going to make it. So and as you say, the physical part of it as well, sometimes you just need a break.
Well, we appreciate you checking into this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show, everyone. Tune in, and as Gary asked during the promo, why don't you sponsor us? Go over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/baseball talk, and just $1 or $2 a month, and it'll help us get some better equipment. I know we had some tech issues tonight, Gary, on the Google Hangouts. We usually stream it live, but we found a way to get it done.
And we may still have some technical issues, but yeah, we're getting it done. I got to get a little bit quicker with the switching here, but yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, we'll talk to you after the All-Star game. Enjoy it, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week on the Baseball Talk Radio Show.